In Judaism, BDE doesn't stand for big dick energy. It actually stands for blessed be the true judge. But for the purposes of this video, BDE does in fact stand for big dick energy. Welcome back to another episode of And God Was Like. I'm your host, Ariel Kaplan. This week I'm talking about Parashat Sh'lach, which means to send. Chapter 13. Being the radical feminist that he is, God actually wants to send 12 female spies to the promised land to scope it out. Moses, on the other hand, is like, what about these 12 fine, strapping young men? And God is like, you sure, bro? And Moses is like, yes, like pinky swear. And God's like, fine, you have to kiss it. And Moses is like, okay. The 12 spies who were chosen are the heads of each tribe of Israel. And before they leave, Moses says, I want you to come back and have the following questions answered. Are the boys hot or not? Is the land fertile enough for me to plant like a cute little garden? Really, he just wanted to know if the land was like good and that they could conquer it. And he also specifically wanted them to bring back fruit so that he would know the land was ripe for the taking. So the spies go on their way and they reach the Valley of Eschal. And here is where they find a cluster of grapes. They cut the branch down and 2 of them have to carry it because these grapes are voluptuous. They also take some pomegranates and figs. So after 40 days of exploring, the spies finally return home and they pull out their Canva presentation to tell the Israelites what's good. And they start out with like a sandwich compliment minus the bottom bread. So they're like, yes, the land is indeed flowing with milk and honey. And here's the fruit. It's amazing. But our enemies, they're like fucking giants to our grasshoppers. The Israelites start freaking the fuck out. They're like, how are we supposed to conquer this land? But one of the spies, Caleb, BDE swinging in the wind, calms everybody down. Chill, you guys. Let's not make mountains out of molehills here. We got this. And the Israelites are like, did you not just hear him? No, we don't. Chapter 14. The Israelites are like, can you believe God? We basically have 2 options, okay? Die in the wilderness or go back to Egypt. I second the nomination to go back to Egypt. Moses and Aaron fall on their faces. You don't want to do this. Did you learn nothing from the meat fiasco in the last chapter? So Caleb, along with Joshua, tear their clothes for like a mourning aesthetic. These enemies, they're like bread ready for us to devour. Y'all really need a little bit of faith, okay? Let God take the wheel. He'll guide us to the land of milk and honey. So someone throws a tomato at Caleb and Joshua, and the rest of the Israelites are like, let's stone them. Suddenly, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's God. And he's like, those backstabbing bitches. I made them who they are. They are nothing without me. Fuck it, I'm over it. I'm about to kill them all. Make you a new nation, Moses. There's actually a belief that the Torah was given to every nation. Nobody wanted it except for the Israelites. So like, we're his last choice and I don't feel great about that. We didn't even really want it. We just wanted to like worship our ancient goddesses and shit. So Moses gets into PR mode and he's like, dude, bro, chill, okay? Not a good look. If the Egyptians hear about it, it's gonna ruin your reputation. And I mean, you said yourself, you're slow to anger, quick to grant mercy. God is like, don't you dare use my words against me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'm gonna kill you. But first, I'm gonna kill all the spies with a plague. He made their tongues grow all the way down to their belly buttons, and then worms grew out of the belly buttons, and I just assume that the worms entered their belly buttons and ate them alive. Just kill them. Don't be so dramatic. And here, dear listeners, is where we discover the source of all Jewish guilt. To punish the spies who went against God, he curses everyone ages 20 and up with wandering in the desert for 40 fucking years. Yes, this is the reason why we were stranded in the desert for 40 years, because the spies spoke against God. God chose 40 years for 1 year for every day that the spies were in Canaan. So God is like, okay, you're all doomed to wander in here and your children will bear the guilt of their loser ancestors, except for Caleb because he's a cutie. And I guess Joshua too, but he doesn't have sons. So the Israelites are like, regroup. We're down to go to Israel, actually. Moses comes in and he's like, too little too late, y'all. If you go, the enemies are gonna kill you because God has left the building. The stupid ass Israelites do not heed Moses' advice. They march on over to the hill and the Amalekites, the enemies kill them. Yet somehow there's always Israelites to spare. So what does the story of the 10 rebel spies teach us? That confidence is everything. If you want to be a sexy bitch, you better start acting like one. Chapter 15. Welcome back to Cooking with God. You know what? Let's just move on. Except for this part. God does tell Moses to tell the Israelites that when they bake challah in the Promised Land, they should always take off a piece, give it to the Kohanim. I would never do that. All of that challah is for me. God is like, if you fail to observe my commandments by accident, bring a sacrifice. If you do it on purpose, you're dead to me. Shabbat story time. The Israelites discover a dude gathering wood on Shabbat. So they arrest him and God commands them to stone him to death because you're not allowed to do that on Shabbat, he says. So you know how some people use a reminder system like putting a rubber band around your wrist? There's a Jewish version of that and it's called tzitzit. God commands the Israelites to make fringes on the four corners of their garments and attach a blue cord to each thread. God is like, the purpose of the tzitzit is so that you remember all 613 commandments, because obviously some of you can't remember them for shit. Petition to make 613 the new 69. Why is it so important that we even remember these mitzvot? 613, it's kind of a lot. The point, God says, that you don't follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. You heard it here first. God does not want you to follow your heart. The eyes and heart are spies. Get it? You guys get it, right? Of the body, and act as agents for sinning. God continues, and he's like, in spite of your sins, I am still your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord, your God. And then he pats himself on the back for a job well done. Even though women weren't allowed to initially wear tzitzit, the idea of tzitzit actually does have a really, really beautiful message. Seeing leads to remembering, and remembering leads to action. When we remember the 613 mitzvot, we recall our Jewish stories and our ancestors and the fucking guilt. Oh, the guilt. Tradition! But mostly our stories of slavery, immigration, being a stranger, and redemption. So when we look at the blue thread in the tzitzit, we remember to use our history of oppression to better the world and do tikkun olam. Whether that's planting trees, spreading raunchy Torah interpretations, or rising up to protest police brutality and systematic racism. Next week, Parashat Sh'lach. God strikes again and shit goes down. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you cuties next week. This frustrates me so much. Like, if God can do that, why is there ever an issue ever with anything?